My parents were Orthodox Jews, but they weren't fanatic about it. They weren't. They observed the dietary laws and so on, but there was nothing fanatic about it. They weren't, but I was. And in my early years, I was fanatic about it. If this was right, if this was a religion, you should do what you had to do. And so I was scrupulous at about the age of 11 or 12, maybe 13. Not quite 13, I guess 11 or 12, 10, 11, 12. I was an enormously observant Jew. I remember once going on a joint Boy Scout trip, a trip with a number of Boy Scout troops, at which they were going to have hot dogs for lunch, and they were not kosher hot dogs. So I ran away because I didn't have the courage to stand up and say I wasn't going to eat them. That was a defect of my character, and I simply ran away. But then, somehow or other, and I don't know where, I began to question it. And when I finally decided that there was no fundamental basis for it, that all of this was mostly myth and prejudice, then I went the other way, and my wife will tell you that I became fanatically anti-religious. So that was one set of defining events, which certainly had a very great impact on me. A very different set is of another kind that I can tell you very quickly. I had a teacher in high school who was really, somehow, I think he taught government or political science, something like that, whatever you call it in high school. But he also taught Euclidean geometry, plane geometry, simply because he liked it as such a beautiful intellectual discipline. And I took his course, and one point or another, he got rhapsodizing about the beauty of geometry, and he quoted the last lines of Keats's Ode to a Groschen Urn. Truth is beauty, beauty is truth. That is all you know and all you need to know. And those two lines stuck with me. I was about probably 12 or 13 at the time, and they have stuck with me ever since because they so much reflected the sort of feeling I had about the geometry as well, and about mathematics in general, that its appeal is one of beauty, kind of an intellectual purity and beauty. Now, that was I'm sure that was what drove me in the direction of thinking I wanted to make mathematics my lifetime work. The New Deal may well have been harmful for the economy, but it was very beneficial for me. I got a job there, earned more money than I'd ever earned before, was able to work on things I was interested in, was able to write some articles that were published and establish a little bit of a scientific reputation. And again, after I left Washington in the mid-30s, I went back during the war, worked at the Treasury for 2 years from 41 to 43, worked as a mathematical statistician for 2 years from 43 to 45, so that I personally have been a beneficiary of governmental activity. So there's nothing personal in it whatsoever. It's entirely a result of what I believe is evidence and analysis, theory and analysis. People grossly underestimate the role of luck and chance in people's lives. Let me illustrate it. If the United States in the 1880s and 1890s had had the kind of laws it has now, my parents would never have been able to come to the United States. They would not have gotten visas. They would not have gotten in there. If they had met and gotten married, they would have been in where they came from, an area of, well, in their lifetime, it was, or when they left it, it was Hungary, Austro-Hungary. It was Carpatho-Ruthenia. It later was at the tail eastern end of the in-between wars Czechoslovakia, and is currently a province of Russia. So that if they had been unable to come to the United States, if they had stayed there and gotten married there, and I was born and all that, I'd now be a citizen of Russia. Pure chance. I had nothing to do with it. One point after another, pure chance. If Homer Jones hadn't happened to be teaching at Rutgers at the time I went there, I never would have had the opportunity to go to Chicago. I would certainly not have become an economist. I would probably have become an applied mathematician. I don't know what I would have done in that area. And so it goes. Pure chance plays an enormous role in the lives of all of us. Now, I don't mean to say that everything is due to chance. Certainly it is not. Certainly character matters. Certainly whether people are willing to work hard. Certainly pure IQ matters. And that's a matter of chance too. Pure random chance of which half of which parent's genes you happen to get. So that character, intelligence, and so on matter. But I think accident matters an enormous amount. Whether people happen to be in the right place at the right time, whether people happen to get hit by an automobile, there are all sorts of things. I think the most important single thing on people's success is whether they are lucky enough to be able to earn their living at doing something that if they could afford to, they would do without any pay. I think the most unlucky people in the world are those who have to earn their living by doing something in which they would not voluntarily work overtime. Now, millions of people have to do that. They are the most unluckiest people. And the luckiest people are people like myself, who by accident are able to earn their living by doing something that if they could afford to, they would do without getting paid. If you don't really want to work overtime at a job, you shouldn't have that job.